Okay, we'll call the meeting in order. The Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of January 24, 2006. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me. Dear Lord, in this time of challenge and change, please give us strength and wisdom to do what we need to do for the city of Newman. Amen.
Thank you, Mike. Roll call, please.
Present.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Ceremonial matters. Items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has something that is not on the posted agenda, now would be the time to bring that up. Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Celeste Mason from Newman, and we were having drum troubles with the neighbor, but I saw an article in the paper I'd like to give to you fellas, and I was wondering if anything else had been found out about a noise ordinance for the city or had been done on it. It seems like Turlock and maybe Las Vegas are having the same kind of problems, and I thought maybe someone could talk to their council and find out what they're doing. This one here had stated something about a $400 fine for unwarranted noise.
I know the chief had been looking at updating all our ordinances, and I believe, Chief, was that one of them? We're working at that one too? Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Mason. Is there any other non-agenda items? Seeing none. Agenda items, when the item comes before us and you'd like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and try to keep your comments under 3 minutes. Public hearings, we have none this evening. Consent calendar. Item A, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the January 10th, 2006 regular meeting. Item C, adopt resolution number 2006-2, a resolution denying the claim of Francisco Gonzalez. And D, adopt resolution number 2006-3, a resolution denying the claim of Salvador Tirado.
Yeah, I need to pull 029801 to precision inspection.
Okay. Any other items to be pulled?
I guess I'll pose a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
These two resolutions, which I have no qualms about denying on the claims, are the actual claimants present?
Yes. Would you like to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Francisco Gonzalez, and I live in 1228th Street. And I came here because a tree fell on top of my car, and it was a city tree. And I received a paper that said that that I wasn't going to pay. The city wasn't going to pay for the damages on my car. And I just want to say that I think it's not fair because I'm a student at Order Stimba, and that was my first car that I had, and that's the car that I go to work with, and I owed money on it, and now I'm gonna have to quit my job and get another job so I get more hours, so I can pay for the damages and for the money that I owe on the car. That's it I have to say.
Thank you. Tom, could you explain how these situations work?
Right. They've filed claims as required. We're covered by what's called a risk management authority, and this is the beginning of the process to do that, to examine the claim. Doesn't mean it won't eventually be paid, but the risk management authority won't cover us if they recommend we deny the claim before they investigate it. So it's really a procedural situation at this point. There's nothing that keeps us from contacting them and saying, in this particular case, can you expedite the matter because of facts that were just presented to you. I can't say that that will guarantee a quicker resolution, but it's really just part of this.
This is a part of the
process,
procedural that has to happen through the.
for claims against the city, right?
Okay.
So this is not a dead issue?
No.
It's going through procedures?
Right. And we will, at your direction, try and expedite the claims with our risk management authority.
And Michael, follow up, as fast as you can with Francisco on this matter. Thank you. If there's no other items to be pulled or discussed on the warrants, could we have some direction?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And warrant 029801.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4 with 1 not participating. Item A under regular business, West Side Theater annual report to the City Council.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Mr. Hallinan, my name is Ed Perry. I'm here this evening as a representative of the West Side Theater Foundation with our annual report to the board, a brief report of our past events and accomplishments in 2005, and then perhaps just a few words about some of our upcoming events and some of our improvements that we plan in the coming year. June 1st of this year will mark the 10th anniversary of this unique relationship between the West Side Theater Foundation and the City of Newman. In that time, a great deal has happened at the theater. Over 63,000 people have passed through the doors at the various events that have taken place at the theater, all of our musical events, all of the fall festival events, all of the traditional events that have been held there. Quite a number, quite an accomplishment that is, in our opinion, that has occurred at the West Side Theater. Since that time, since its inception, the West Side Theater Foundation's mission has been and still remains to bring the visual and performing arts to the city, the citizens of the city of Newman and to the greater West Side. It certainly has happened. In fact, it is extended to much beyond the West Side at this point. We have many regular visitors to the theater from Modesto, Turlock, Oakdale, Las Banas, Merced. All of the surrounding communities have found the West Side Theater to be a fine place to spend time in a variety of the visual and performing arts. One of the other missions was to restore the theater, and I think when we look at those two tenets of our mission, I think by any standard there has been a great success. If you look at the theater today and see the progress that has been made in that time. The progress has been made primarily because of three things. Number one, and perhaps the most important, has been the continued support of this council for the theater and the support of the foundation for the activities at that theater. And it's been a wonderful relationship, both in the past councils and certainly in this present council. Another reason for its success has been the ongoing community support, both in terms of patronage at our events, tremendous patronage. In fact, it's been increasing each year, both from folks walking in the door and paying to see some good events, to participate in events, as well as some generous donations from the community. And then the third item, I think, that is critical to the success and to the results that you see today has been the tremendous dedication by a group of volunteers. volunteers that have accomplished so much in that time. I think what's so important about these folks is that they can take $1 in donations or $1 in money that is taken at the door for an event and multiply it several times. Turn it into $5 or $10 or $20 just by using their talents and their skills to fix something up, to make another improvement, to do more painting, to do more restoration of the theater. So it's a group of volunteers that have talents, that have been able to turn those talents to good use. The theater, even with all of those volunteer activities, the theater still must be run as a business, and we believe that it is run as a business. It takes $300 just to open our doors in terms of some of the maintenance costs, some of our insurance costs for the folks that come through the doors for the events, about 85 cents a person in terms of insurance costs for some of the events that we have there. So we must rely on some of our events to bring in revenue in order to continue to keep the doors open and continue to make the improvements that you see. Just a recap then of our accomplishments in 2005. We had a total of 63 total events in 2005. What's remarkable about these events is the range and variety of events that have been held there. We begin with our music series, everything from barbershop to blues to bluegrass, rock, big band, some great singer-songwriters like Nina Story, for those of you who've been there, some Old West kind of music with Sourdough Slim, comedy, and much, much more in our music series and other series. Plays, Newman Performing Arts production of Grease and Scrooge, Missoula Children's Theater with Frog Prince and others, and then of course fall festival activities and traditional activities like the prom has been held there for many years. Out of those 63 total events in 2005, that have been a total of 8,600 people visit the theater over that period of time in those various events. Some notes about capital improvements that were made in 2005, a sound system that we were able to have with a generous donation, $20,000, and then hooked up and put into use by, again, the volunteers, an acoustic project which allowed sound curtains to be hung on the walls so that now the quality of the music events there is top quality. And many of the folks who do musical performances there, many of the performers are at the point now where they're calling to ask to come back because the venue is so good for music, and that's a good place to be in terms of our musical series. In the works for 2006, in terms of capital projects, we hope to continue an upgrade of the electrical system, some new rear exit doors, and pigeon-proof of the marquee. Pigeons wreak havoc with the neon, and so we need to do something about pigeons and hope to accomplish that in the coming year. Some upcoming events for 2006, a couple of Missoula Children Theater productions, 2 West Side Theater plays, one coming up in February and March, Stanislaus County Stars Award, which has been a wonderful event and showcases our theater in a way that we couldn't do otherwise, but to have all of these folks from Stanislaus County Arts Council visit the theater and to stand and watch those folks who are not strangers to the performing arts, to walk in and stand there in amazement and in awe at the theater is quite an experience.
This is the 3rd year in a row for this.
Yes, it is. Yes. And of course, the Newman Chamber Awards, fall festival events, the traditional Hogs and Rods event that we have at the theater right in front of the theater, and the theater participates during the Memorial Day weekend. The Newman Chamber Christmas Mixer, prom, and so forth are coming in 2006. We have a visual arts show coming with a local artist, Ravi Fonseca, And then NPA, Newman Performing Arts, has planned 4 events this year, 4 plays this year. And then, of course, interspersed through all of that will be our music series with all of that variety that I mentioned earlier, scheduled through September. So just some great upcoming events, and it's a pleasure for me. This is my third year having delivered this message and report to you, and it's always a pleasure to do so. I think a couple of last things that I wanted to do before I conclude. There are a number of volunteers out there in the audience, and I just want to make the point that the board of directors for the West Side Theater Foundation is a working board. All of these folks also show up at most of the events and contribute to all of the activities that make it a success. And so if I would just, I think I would just like to ask the volunteers that are out there to stand and be recognized, and as well as the board. Please, would you folks just stand so that we can recognize you this evening? Thank you. Thank you very much. And that concludes my presentation. I would like to again promote the theater to the folks sitting here, and we look forward to seeing members of the City Council there at our performances as always. So, thank you very much.
You want to make mention of the brick program, the donation?
Oh, yes, thanks. Councilman Parker mentioned the brick, the Buy a Brick program. We have a program where you can have your name immortalized in stone in front of the West Side Theater. Everything from an individual to a business can purchase a brick. It will be set into the rest of the bricks in front of the theater. I believe it's still $100 a brick, if I'm not mistaken. $100 a brick, and you have the option of putting whatever words you want. It's a wonderful way of recognizing a loved one. Many people do it as memorials to folks that have passed away. And so please, any of you who want to do that and haven't done it, please take advantage of that. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, I don't mind people kicking that brick if they go in. At least I know. At least I know they patronize the theater with me. Well, thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council
Thank
for
you, Ed.
allowing me to deliver that report.
Thank you very much. Item B, adopt resolution number 2006-4, a resolution approving the scope of work for the wastewater capacity analysis and authorize the acting city manager to execute a contract for services with Ecologic.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Tonight we have the first of a few scope of work that will be coming to you in relation to both our wastewater treatment plant and our source of water, if you will. This is the first step along that journey that we're going to take. This all came about back in the late 90s, early 2000. There were the Sherman Ranch and Hearthstone Ranch projects were approved. And as you know, we've been experiencing some rapid growth in those two projects. They sat for a while, now they're moving forward. With that growth came along the concern by staff to make sure that we find out exactly where we stood in terms of our wastewater treatment plant and the capacity that we had and the capacity to serve future projects. That really came to fruition in the spring of 2005 when the Planning Commission denied a project based upon the uncertainty to provide these essential services, wastewater service, to a subdivision, or 120, 110, I think, lots that would have been subdivided within the city. So with that, staff has been working with Ecologic, the consulting firm that we recently hired, and we work with them on this plan. And what this plan is going to do is, it's going to do two things. The first step in this is to do an analysis on our treatment plant. we've given them direction to look at 3 different aspects of our treatment plant. One, we want you to go out there and take a look at the actual processing of the effluent and tell us what our capacity is. Second step is go out and take a look at our storage capacity. How much storage basins do we have out there, and how much water are we able to hold? And then the third thing they're going to look at is how much land that we have. We have a farming operation out there, as you all know. And so we want them to look at the amount of land that we have out there and how much water we're able to dispose of. Then, after they do that, they're basically going to crunch those numbers and come back and say, okay, this is what your capacity is, and this is how many additional lots that you can serve right now. And obviously it'll be a range because you can't pinpoint exactly, but they're going to be very close. And so that's kind of what we're going to be working from. So then we can come back to the council and say, okay, council, so staff has made some projections to you in the past. Now we've had an independent third party look at this, and this is where we stand. So we can have a measure of confidence in where we stand with our sewer treatment plant. Following that, the next step they're going to do as part of this process is to tell us how we can maximize our efficiency out there. Meaning we have a discharge permit of 1.69 MGD, which is million gallons per day. And that's on an over a month average. So we want to be able to maximize that. We get as much flowing into it as we can, but still work under this current permit that allows us to discharge 1.69 MGD. So we believe, staff believes that there are some bottlenecks out in the existing system that we can eliminate and help that plant operate more efficiently and to gain additional capacity under our existing permits. With that, he'll also tell us additional storage that we'll need, or if we'll need to buy additional land for disposal as well. But we're going to start getting this big picture idea. So that, to us, would be this short-term or interim step measure. We anticipate that that measure is going to, with the increase of capacity and increase of efficiency, we should be able to get another 3 to 8 years worth of growth or development in the community. We don't know what the number is, so it's hard for me to make the accurate projection, so that's why I'm kind of giving you a range. With that, we think that that interim step is going to buy us time, as you've heard Dr. Stoll tell you, that we are moving towards a new treatment plant. And in his road path that he gave us last time in his last presentation, he talked about the possibility of adding a second treatment plant for the city. So, part of this proposal also is Ecologic will work with staff and the wastewater treatment task force, as well as this council, to come up with 2 things. One is going to be that interim step and what that plan is going to be and how we're going to get there. And the second is a long-term plan on what we're going to go to. You've heard the professor talk about we'll probably need to go to surface water. So what we're trying to do is develop 2 concept plans, the interim and then the long-term, and then we can take those plans with Ecologic's help to the Regional Water Quality Control Board and present them and get their buy-off into those plans. That way, once we get them to buy off into those plans, the interim step, and then go into the long-range plan, we can proceed forward in doing some master planning for ultimate infrastructure in terms of long-term 20-year, 30-year growth patterns, and making sure that these treatment facilities and water distribution facilities can handle basically the build-out of our new general plan. At the conclusion of these steps, Ecologic will present all this information as a presentation here at the City Council, and we'll also get it done in a report form, written report form for the public as well. We believe that this is the next step that we need to do, and this is the most logical sequence. Things that we're doing in this first step, this wastewater capacity analysis study, is things we're going to have to do anyways for a wastewater treatment plant master plan. So we're not creating any additional steps. Now, actually, I take that back. We're creating an additional step by doing the efficiency, but that's something that's benefiting the city anyways. But these are steps that the city needs to take to secure its long-term future and be able to provide wastewater facilities in the future and for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So our plan is to work with the council along the way. When we develop a concept plan, staff and Ecologic will be here to present it to this council, which we're hoping at that time they'll basically give us a go-ahead to go meet with the Regional Water Quality Control Board and get this plan in place. They estimated that this is going to take about 4 to 6 months to accomplish all these tasks. Personally, I've been working with Lance and Ernie a little bit on this for quite a while now, so the development of a concept plan may not take that long. So hopefully we're going to be at the shorter end of that and be able to come back to you in 4 months and be completed with this and have Regional Water Quality Control Board. As you know, you sent them a letter that was drafted by Rich Stoll. We still have not received a response from them. So we think it's our position that we need to kind of push this issue forward and continue to move it forward by developing a plan, taking it to them, getting their buy-off on it, and then once again develop long-term strategies towards providing wastewater treatment plant for this community. Within this year's budget, there are monies that have been allotted for an urban water management study and master plan studies for both water, sewer, and storm drainage. In our conversations, when I say ours, it's staff and myself, in our conversations with Ecologic, we need to probably get halfway through this report before we can actually get a more detailed proposal for the water and the sewer master plans, because we need to develop those conceptual strategies and take those to the board and get them to approve them before we really finalize those details. So with that, we're looking at using those monies to fund this project. As you know, we recoup all monies. There will be a direct nexus that we can tie into future projects, such as some on Prince Road and other city projects within the city. And they will be paying for not only this study, but the improvements to create additional capacity at the treatment plant, but also more for long-term strategies as well. So,
Michael, and you said the funds that we currently have for those other projects are going to be able to cover the $57,000?
yes, there's probably in excess of $300,000 that has been earmarked for this budgeted year for additional studies. We will not utilize that entire amount.
Gotcha.
So in the timeline, Michael, of a letter from Ecologic, the number one thing that they'll be looking at is the capacity analysis, which is 4 to 5 weeks, right?
That's correct.
That'll be the first task that they perform.
That's correct. So within the next month and a half, we anticipate we'll be able to, come back to this council and give you a general idea of where we stand in terms of capacity-wise. And then we'll start working out those strategies for the future.
Sounds good. Something we have to do.
Michael, one of the other questions I have, it's obvious we need a short-term capacity study. You alluded to surface water, developing an external source of water. Before we do a second long-term plan and spend the money to do that, do you think it would behoove us to look at surface water and how that's going to affect the capacity of the current sewer plant before we look at a long-term out there? Because if we drop our salt level using clean water, the discussions we've had, that could increase the capacity out there.
Councilman, it will not change the capacity level, because the amount that's flowing in is the amount flowing in. But what you're alluding to is we are going to get a more favorable Regional Water Quality Control Board staff when we're having cleaner water. But that is something that this council and the decision you're going to make when we start talking about those short-term and long-term conceptual plans that we want the board to buy off on. That's when you're going to give us direction and say, you know what, we're going to get on the path of an external source, a surface water source, and we're going to start going down that path. So as part of those conceptual plans, we're going to run a couple different options by you. And one of those will be to acquire surface water rights and start down that path of, okay, what's it going to take to, how much water do we need, what's it going to cost, where are we going to get it, and start moving through that.
If we do in fact put cleaner water out there, what are our chances of increasing our MGD, since we're not going to be putting 2,400 parts per million salt on the ground? There'll be a considerably less number, so that will, in essence, allow us to put more on the ground.
Well, MGD means millions of gallons per day, and that's irrespective of the salt level, the salinity level. So really, we're just talking about how much water actually flows out to the sewer treatment plant. I think what the answer that you're looking for is, if we go to this treated surface water that has a significant lower salinity level, will the regional board allow us to continue to operate out at that site instead of relocating and building a second treatment plant? But those are things that we would have to work out in our conceptual plan and propose that to them. But in terms of creating more capacity or getting more gallons out there just because we change our water, the flow is the flow. Now, they'll be happier because the water's cleaner and less salty, but we're still required by law to operate under a 1.69 discharge permit. So that won't increase.
That's our capacity.
That's our
1.69.
capacity, that's correct. Now that's discharge. When I talk to Ecologic, realistically you can get 1.8 million flowing in, but you only discharge 1.69 because you lose some to evaporation and a few other things. So you actually might get 1.8 flowing into your treatment plant, but you're only discharging 1.69 million gallons.
But that first immediate report that the mayor mentioned will be that analysis of.
That's correct. That's correct. And then the first one will be the analysis, and then the part of it is that the interim capital improvements, and that's going to tell you how to get to that 1.7 or 1.8 inflow.
I think I just had a couple of comments, and they may sort of tie in to my colleague there, Mr. Krinkle, in terms of where I think you were getting at a little bit with the growth factor. One of the things I look at in its immediacy is infill, something that I'm a proponent of, something I've spoke about. When we have empty lots in the city, or we have empty acreage that's already annexed, that's in the city of Newman, that's undeveloped, that may be in an area of housing zoning, which has come before us. That report will give us, I think, a more clearer picture of where we actually stand. What I like most about the presentations that have come through Ecologic and what you brought up in this current staff report is the interim possibilities of a solution for 3 to 5 years. Because what I've seen in the cost figures that have come our way, it's going to take a real and there's been some of these, some private-public partnerships to even build a whole new wastewater treatment plant, if that's the direction we go. But the interim is something I'm really interested in seeing, to see what we can currently do with our current wastewater treatment plant that meets compliances. And I think that'll give us a better view, if you will, of the current land that we currently have, because this is kind of going in tandem and hand in hand, putting on the other hat with our general plan update.
And just a reminder, since we were talking about surface water, Southwest County is hosting that surface water forum tomorrow, 2 o'clock at the Ag Center. Myself and staff will be attending. This is a very important meeting. It's not only for us, it's for San Joaquin and Merced counties also, so very important meeting. Ernie?
I just wanted to see if I could help Michael clarify the explanation of the influence of the plant. If you get new source water with lower ECs, what that only does is it minimizes the degradation of the groundwater. The groundwater there is so shallow that you don't get the percolation rates that you would get elsewhere. In other words, you need twice as much land in that area than if the plant was over on the west side of town. So you're not gaining any more MGD, as he was saying, more water to put on the effluent to put on the ground. It's only minimizing the degradation of the groundwater, which is what the regional board is really frowning on us on.
Yeah, but following the same lines, Ernie, if they're smiling at us rather than frowning on us because we're putting nice, clean water out there, then maybe they will allow us to have a larger inflow.
Well, yes, but the land won't take it. The groundwater's too shallow. Then you can only put so much. Lance has a real balance on the type of crops that he's got going out there. So if you overdo it, you're not gonna raise your crops right, and it's just not gonna function right. So that's the thing. We just can't increase the flow to it, even if it's a cleaner source water.
So we're just pacifying them, in essence.
Well, here's the thing. If they are claiming that we're degrading the groundwater, and they want us to investigate it by sinking additional monitoring wells. Now, what they are saying is, prove to us that you are not putting viruses and pathogens into the groundwater. If you are, then what's going to happen is you're going to have to line those ponds out there. And you can't line them. I mean, it's almost impossible to line them because of the shallow groundwater. So that may mean that we may need an entire new plant. So these are all the issues that we've been meeting with and discussing with Ecologic and addressing. But I was just trying to help Michael clarify that a little bit, that even if the new source water is lower in these seas, we just can't put more water on the land.
Thank you, Ernie.
And these are all the important issues that staff and Ecologic will present to you as you develop your concept plans for the interim measure and the long term.
Further questions? If not, direction?
I move that we approve resolution number 2006-4, a resolution approving the scope of work for the wastewater capacity analysis and authorizing the acting city manager to execute said contract for services with Ecologic.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item C, adopt resolution number 2006-5, a resolution approving the annual transportation claim and authorizing the city manager to execute the same on behalf of the city of Newman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, the item you have before you is a request for the approval of the annual Transportation Development Act claim to StanCog. They're the ones who are holding the money. This service is the claim for we're putting in a claim for $116,361, and that's to maintain, reconstruct, build streets, roads, implement also our pavement management system. And in addition, we've also included an allocation for $5,817, and that's to maintain sidewalks and the bike paths. Once you approve this resolution, then it'll go to StanCog, and then from there they'll take it over to the policy board. And once the policy board approves it, then we can start getting our money. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. If there's no questions, can we have some direction?
I move to adopt resolution 2006-5, resolution approving the annual transportation claim, authorizing city manager to execute the same on behalf of the city of Newman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And just for information, usually these are consent items. Usually it's just a consent item on the StanCog policy board. Kind of goes through rather smoothly.
This is just a procedural, yes, for the allocation for each city, but I trust that you will get us more money as usual.
I'm always working on that. Get our fair share.
Thank you, Tim. Item D, budget update by department.
Yes, this council has expressed some concern over some budgetary issues that have arisen over the past several council meetings. We haven't done a mid-year budget, and based upon new leadership in the city, we're really just diving into this. But tonight, what we're trying to do is just give you a precursor to a mid-year budget review, and basically, Lacey is going to start off and it's going to kind of give you an overview of the city budget, revenues, expenditures, and are we meeting projections? And then after that, each department will just kind of give a state of their department about their fiscal budgets.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents of Newman. I have here and everyone will get one of these later. It's basically with the reference to expenditures and our revenues this year with some, Michael actually gave me a little guidance on this. The way I was going to do it, there would have been about 20, 30 pages, and it would have been way too much information. So basically what this is the big picture. I see that last year, our budgeted amount was it was at $11,498,000. Well, we only spent, from what I see, and this is numbers that I get from our software. This is not numbers that I make up. This is actually numbers that I get from our software. It tells me that we only spent $8,147,000. Well, I don't know where that other money was. I don't know if it was allocated to other funds. I don't know. And we are in the middle right now of an audit. There have been adjustments to the audit. There are still adjustments going on to this day, and I guess the auditor is sending me or Emily adjustments for us to, send monies here and there. And at this point, on this particular handout that I have here, there's a projected column here, and I always try to show my last fiscal year with this fiscal year, and I show here that on the first page here, I always do, last year's fiscal and compare it to this year's. Now the projected is only a projection of, I took this year where we are now and just doubled it. Now this is not saying that, we might need a new police car or anything like that. This is just how we're dealing with our budget right now. So this is just what I see right now. So the projected is only so that we could see if we'd even be under budget right about, or at this year end. For any of the department heads that may need any further reports, any reports that may need to be tweaked a little bit, feel free to call me at any time. It doesn't take much to do them anymore. The hardest part initially was creating the reports, and now that I have them, they can be fixed at any time. As a matter of fact, I was missing one for Terry the other day, and it didn't take long to really get it out there. This is my first presentation, so I don't know what else to do. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Where are you making reference to the projected amount?
On the very first page, see, it's in color, and I knew I probably should have given it to Judy earlier.
Okay.
But the projected is actually like a purple color, and it basically...
Are they the taller columns?
Yeah, they're actually the third column.
Okay.
So the first column is your fiscal 0405, second is 0506, and third is projected.
Okay.
But I only did project it on our actual revenues and expenditures, not on the budget. Now, anything that you see that doesn't look right, I can produce a report within minutes. That's how I got it, and basically put it into this PowerPoint. And I can show you anything that you want to see. Things that happen in 0405, I can't explain it, but I can pull it out of the trial balance and show you what happened and what was coded to those particular accounts, funds, or departments.
And I just had a question,
Yes, sir.
just so we could clarify this,
Uh-huh.
because I know we're going off of this report here.
Yes, sir.
With the mid-year 0506 with the discrepancy listing, just for the sake of clarification, and maybe we could kind of get through this a little quicker.
Okay.
We have several department budget reports. We have this discrepancy listing. Now, are we going to have the department heads come up and give a slight overview, or we're going to go into these discrepancy listings, or what's the orderly sequence of events that we're going to do?
What we have going on tonight is just a very it's going to be a precursor to a mid-year budget report that's going to get into the details.
Okay.
I haven't had time to really dive into this, and with the changeovers in staff and direction and the auditors coming in, it was really tough to get the finance department to correspond because of their requirements to the auditor. But on February 14th at your next meeting, we're going to dive deeper into this, and we're going to start talking about discrepancies. We're going to start talking about...
This issue here seems like a totally separate issue in and of itself.
Correct.
This
And
discrepancy-
I also have some clarification as to some of the reports that may have seemed infeasible, where you got some negative numbers.
Right.
I have some answers to that as well. So,
When's the audit supposed to be finished?
I didn't get a chance to talk to him before that. The redevelopment agency audit is done, and he's completing now the city audit. So I would anticipate here in the coming weeks.
It'll be done before our next meeting.
I can't tell for certain, but I can email all of you and let you know exactly when that'll be done.
I guess,
The audit is for excuse me, Councilman. The audit is for last year, not this year.
last fiscal year.
That's correct.
I guess on Charles's coattails and in fairness to Lacey and going over the books and the numbers, how much of this current report is relative to the original budget that we approved for the 05-06 year? And maybe you can speak to that a little in terms of the actual numbers that we were presented and we approved for expenditures based on where we are here kind of mid-year.
Well, one thing I didn't do that I'm just now noticing is that I did not put the budget bar on here for this year.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I didn't do that. I apologize for that. And I can actually, for our next meeting, I will have that on there. Okay. It's not much because I have all the figures already. But as far as our actuals are on here, the actuals are our true actuals
Of expenditures.
of expenditures
Okay.
and revenues.
In light of that, do you think are we still going to hear a report from each department head? Or,
They were just going to kind of give you a state of their department type address, very general, not detailed at all.
okay,
If you'd like, we could put that off and then get a more detailed report at the next meeting. With something that really has some more meat on it, if you'd like.
I would say try not to spend any more money in your department than you have to until we get to the and this is why I brought it up as a concern, because I look at the numbers and sometimes I might be a little more critical, and Lacey can make mention. I'll go in down to City Hall. I've done this previously with council's approval to talk to our finance director at the time when we had a finance director, when Margaret Souza was still here, to kind of understand our numbers, because we'll get the big picture, and we want to make sure the numbers are adequate. And this city hasn't had a problem. It's been so fiscally conservative, I think, over the years that we've been able to balance things out. But I think a measured pace that we're taking, and to the credit of the acting city managers, we want to make sure that we're in line, that we're in tune, and we're making sure the numbers fit. And I can appreciate, the stab at it. But if we can be patient enough to give you guys the time to come back with more accurate numbers, get your reports in line, get your figures in line, and so that we can make sure the money is where it needs to be.
I think in light of that, we'll hold off till the next meeting for each department to give their report.
Okay.
If that's okay with the rest of the council.
I concur.
And
concur.
we don't have a color printer at City Hall, right? Or do we?
You would get a high quality report next
I'll make
time.
sure they get done.
What I was saying is, if you get this done, if you email it to my house,
Okay.
I'll print it out because I have a color printer at home. So
Oh, okay.
it's a simple thing.
Okay.
You will all get high quality reports next time, easy to read.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll find it.
Okay, items 11. Items from city manager and staff.
Again, the last 2 weeks we've really been working on staff coming together once again, identifying which projects are on the board, prioritizing those projects, and making sure that we get time scheduled and getting those projects completed. Again, we're all just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page and getting this team together. I can assure you that we have full confidence in one another, and we have the support of one another, and this team will move forward in a manner that's going to get projects done on schedule and on budget for this community. So it's a little difficult for me to add any additional comments other than that right now. As we proceed forward, you will be seeing more and more items come before you and more detailed reports as well. So. With that, from the planning director side, I will put my other hat on. The Planning Commissioners Workshop, Stanislaus County, we're again expecting 100 to 125 people from 5 different counties to come down to our theater on February 4th. That's a Saturday. If any council members would like to attend, let me know, and we'll make sure that you have the appropriate identification.
How many people are we expecting?
We're expecting between 100 and 125. That's a catered lunch, and it's all paid for by the applicant, so it's not costing the city anything. Judy's been a very big help in putting that together, and we've had the help of the Stanislaus County planning directors as well. So all the speakers are taken care of, the caterers taken care of, so everything's moving forward on that measure. We just had our recent general plan meeting on the 17th. It was a very successful meeting. It was very short. It was only about 50 minutes, and we were just kind of updating the committee on where we were at because we hadn't met in a couple months. We gave them a synopsis of what the land use map that they approved as their working draft, what that meant in terms of total acreages for both residential, industrial, and commercial. And now we will do an economic analysis on those to make sure we have an adequate jobs to housing balance and that we have a fiscally balanced general plan that goes forward. That's just something that you do as part of the general plan. You just want to make sure you have a fiscally positive and balanced general plan that's not basically subsidized by the city. So that's moving forward. We had the opportunity to meet with some school board members. I think the mayor will expand upon this, but the one part is we shared the steering committee's ideas with the school board and asked them to join us in these master plans that we're looking at for the future and to help us identify, the sizes of schools that they would like to see and the general locations of those schools. So I think that relationship is growing, and we should get very nice neighborhoods built out of this. So with all, that's all I have as the planning director as well.
Is there any other department heads that would like to give any report that doesn't have anything to do with the budget?
Public Works has completed the work at Ace Hardware. The tree's been removed. We've cut the concrete, and so it's all in there. The ball is in their court, so they're going to finish that. Also, we've been busy trying to get the Darrington Park expansion going. We had the crews remove the chain link fence. Now we need to hire some local contractors to do some land leveling and get the materials for the irrigation systems ordered and hired some part-time help and get that going. I'm also I talked with our previous city engineer, Mr. Gary Davis, this afternoon. I'll be meeting with him sometime next week so that we can get that layout of that parking lot and also get moving on that. Any questions?
Thank you, Ernie.
Mayor and City Council. From my last meeting that we had, was an update on our staffing that we're doing. We have a new officer that's gone through all our background and all the testing process, and he will be starting on February 1st. He'll be at your next council meeting for a badge pinning. And our recruitment or promotional exam for the sergeant position that was allocated at the last meeting, we have 4 applicants, and we're looking at February 9th as an oral board, and hopefully an appointment by the 15th. So, and then we're looking at we have a second officer from the oral boards that we've gone through that's in background at this point. We're anticipating a February 15th hiring date on that individual as well. So hopefully we'll be back up to staff and ready to go. Secondly, I told you also that we were looking at doing our major upgrade for our records management We had the training on the 17th and 18th, and we're looking at, well, found some issues, and we're looking to have those things resolved and get us online in about a month. So it's been about a 5-year project, and we're finally getting there between the hardware and the software. So if you have any kind of questions, I'm happy to answer.
Just a quick question on the applications for sergeant. Knowing that part of our department was relatively young, or you've had new ones before us here in the recent 2 or 3 years, were there any outside applicants, or were they all inside?
It was promotional, so it was all in-house. And it was most of the officers there that I have that applied have got about 4 years with us. So.
Okay.
And the rest of them are very young.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I just wanted to let you know that basketball season has started. We have 206 participants, and they seem to be having a lot of fun and excitement going on in the league. And Mike and I are working with a couple of gentlemen who have come to us, and they want to teach a martial arts class for the city free of charge to the participants. And we're working out the details of the insurance and such.
Is that for adults, children, all ages?
He says about 5 years old up. So like if you want to bring your children and you want to participate. So, adults too.
That was Mr. Rusco?
No, that would be Mr. Davis and Mr. Don Alves.
Okay, I think one of his neighbors mentioned that previously.
We did have a gentleman who wanted to come in and teach them as a contractor and charge for the classes, and we were in the works with him, but then his work schedule changed and he was unable to do that.
And these guys are doing it for free.
And these guys had come in the middle of that, and I'm like, well, we were already in contract, negotiations with him to present the insurance, and he had already put some money down on the insurance, but then he called and said he was unable to do it due to his work.
Very good.
So hopefully we can bring a nice program to the youth. Question?
Thank you, Terry, and send Mike an application. I think he wants to join.
My wife wants to go, but I'm not sure if I want her to participate in the martial arts. Might be injurious to
Could be
me.
trouble. Okay. Staff is through. Items from city council members. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make mention on the 20th Friday, I attended a League of California Cities Public Safety Committee meeting up in Sacramento. I'm actually the vice chair of that committee this year, but some of the legislation, we had Assemblyman Leno come in out of San Francisco, and I think it's pertinent to mention some of the legislation that they're talking about. One, they've been discussing what's been dubbed as Jessica Law, and it's more or less a sexual predator type of law, and it's talking about where people that have been convicted as a sexual offender, where they will live after they're released from prison. And one of the things that was talked about and became a discussion topic was they talk about them being some 2,000 feet from a school. And one of the concerns was, well, would that end up being in most of the rural areas? And so our former retired sheriff, Les Wyman, also came in at that meeting and did a presentation on behalf of the governor. He's the public safety liaison. And so these are some of the things that are taking place on a statewide level, trying to stay a grasp of, because it could be something that could impact our small community. And the other topic, I think, was in terms of the 3 strikes law. Maybe there had been some talk of reform there, but I think that's being tabled. So I just wanted to make mention of that, staying the course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tim. Charles? No.
Bob? Had one question. We had a retirement party at the theater just recently, and congratulations to. My concern is, I heard it was a city function, and I just want to know if that's accurate or not. Was it sponsored by the city?
It was not sponsored by the city.
Okay. The reason I say that because I think it opens the theater up for other people to use it too. I think that's something we have to consider. It's like, and I think this is good. I think that the theater should be open, and I think what we need is a clarification from the theater group as far as who can use the theater under which circumstances too.
Yeah. Well, I say it was not directly sponsored by the city. Obviously, the person was directly involved with the city, so there's very close ties. So, well, it wasn't directly, it's directly related to the city. But we will, if you'd like, come up with some policies about that and work with the theater group.
I think it's only fair that, you know, we do, and of course, and I'd like to see the theater used for more things. I mean, to me, there's opportunity for other functions to be held there, and I'd like to see that occur.
Thank you, Bob.
That's all I have.
Mike?
Nothing this evening.
No?
Couple things as Mike brought up about the relation with the school board. One of the, I think, 8 meetings that I attended last week, one of them was our joint meetings that we're having with the 2 council members and 2 school board members. So we have a new school board member on the committee, Derek Solano, and it actually was a meeting of the interim city manager and interim school superintendent. So we're continuing the talks going, which is very important with the general plan in the process. It's definitely important to have excellent relations with the school district in future plans, so we'll keep those going. And I think that's all I had. And enjoyed attending Ed Caton's retirement party. It's a great event. Thank you, Ed, Deanne. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you.